So I came across an interesting article from Tom Silverstein of Packers News earlier today, and he shared some insights from some sources regarding this Packers offensive line, with the Packers bringing in first-rounder Jordan Morgan, with the Packers, letting John Runyon Jr. go, Josh Nijman, David Bakhtiari. There is going to be some potential shifting on this offensive line, and it's going to be interesting to see sort of how it all shakes out. But I want to share some interesting information here that is important to keep in mind as we watch this competition and, the Packers decide who these best 5 offensive linemen are as we go through OTAs and training camp. But here it is from the article, and I'll leave the full article link down below because there's a lot of interesting information. I'm just going to share a couple short quotes. But he said this: the most common opinion among media and fans is that right tackle Zach Tom is going to replace center Josh Myers, forcing the 2021 second-round draft pick either to guard or the bench, and possibly a trade before the season starts. Here's the reality. The Packers like Myers, and they don't anticipate moving him out of the starting lineup. So it does not sound like the Packers plan to bench Myers. It does not sound like they anticipate him not being in the starting lineup. And so when you look at Myers in his time here in Green Bay, he hasn't been some kind of, I'd say, elite center. I think he's been fine. He's been good enough for this Packers offensive line not to have some really, really big issues. We saw last year the Packers were one of the best pass-blocking offensive line in the entire NFL. Jordan Love was protected greatly most of the season, even though there were some injuries dealt with, like Bakhtiari leaving early in the year. Rasheed Walker did a good job at left tackle. And so the Packers sound like their plan is to stick with Myers, and odds are it's at center, it sounds like, but maybe if it's not center, he could play guard potentially, but it doesn't sound like the Packers at least think that someone else is going to take his spot on the offensive line. But that is what they anticipate. So it's not like things can't change. You'd assume if we go through OTAs and training camp and they see, okay, well, this offensive line could be better off with Zach Tom at center and let's say, someone else at right guard, not Josh Myers, then I think they would, happily or pretty easily make that move. But it sounds like the plan is, per Silverstein, that the Packers like Myers and they don't plan on him leaving the starting lineup. So that's interesting to keep in mind. And this is the other part I want to share. He said, a source said, is that he has developed a good rapport with quarterback Jordan Love, who has come to trust Myers' protection calls at the line of scrimmage. He also is accurate with his shotgun snaps, which is critical for a quarterback. And so that's interesting to keep in mind that, the center and quarterback, it's a pretty important relationship. Not that Jordan Love couldn't figure things out with a new center, but he has an entire season of growing that relationship and that rapport with Josh Myers. And so it's, not shocking that, you'd think maybe Love would want to stick with a guy like Josh Myers. And so not that it can't change, not that the Packers couldn't decide to move out Myers from center. I think that if someone else shows that they're better, I think they'd happily do it. But it sounds like the plan is to stick with Myers at center. And so when we look at this Packers' entire offensive line, there's so many possibilities when it comes to this offensive line and which players could shift where, because all these guys have a lot of positional versatility, which is something Brian Gutekunst keeps in mind when he's drafting these offensive linemen. And so when we look at this entire offensive line, it sounds like Jordan Morgan is going to have a shot at winning that left tackle job. It makes sense considering he is a first rounder. He played left tackle in college. And so Jordan Morgan has a chance to beat out Rasheed Walker at left tackle. Even though Rasheed Walker was pretty solid last year, the Packers could upgrade there if Morgan wins that job. And the question sort of goes from there. If Jordan Morgan were to win the left tackle job, what happens to Rasheed Walker? Would the Packers bench him? Would they move him to right tackle and maybe try to move Zach Tom to right guard? Would they try Walker at guard? I mean, there's so many different things that could happen here, and I think the Packers will just test different things out to see, which works best, as they typically do. And I feel like the only position that is really locked in stone here on this offensive line is Elton Jenkins at left guard. It does not sound like there's going to be any kind of, or seem like there's going to be any kind of change there. Looking at center, Josh Myers, probably going to be center, but Jacob Monk, 5th rounder, did spend time playing center. He could either be a backup, but we'll see if he can compete with Myers. Zach Tom also could be a center. We saw, if we look at right guard, Sean Ryan, before the season or before the draft and all this stuff, seemed like he would probably be the guy at right guard. But now with Morgan here, if the Packers decide Rasheed Walker is better at left tackle, Jordan Morgan could play right guard potentially. Maybe you move Josh Myers to guard if you think someone else is better at center. And then finally, right tackle, it sort of depends on what happens at left tackle, because maybe if Jordan Morgan wins that left tackle job, as I said, Zach Tom maybe moves to guard. Rasheed Walker could go to right tackle. So there's just so many different differentiations you could have here. And right now, it's really, uncertain because we'll have to see how these guys play in training camp, and that's what it's going to come down to. The Packers don't seem to know, what they're going to do, and they're going to wait and see, what happens in camp and sort of see, what the best 5 are here in Green Bay, and there's lots of possibilities. And so that, with the Packers in the past couple weeks, drafting 3 offensive linemen, adding some different undrafted free agents, they have a lot more possibilities and a lot more competition and depth at all these positions, and so it'll be fun to see. But that is all I have for this video. If you want more Packers content, feel free to subscribe down below, and I'll see you guys next time.